Okay, welcome again to the Seattle Sutton Marseilles Museum. It's the sweetest museum, and I've been in 6 states, and I've seen them all. And this museum. That has my heart. Seattle bought this
depot
to make a museum, and she has a heart for Marseilles, and we have a heart for her. Stand up. Stand up. The day I met her, my life began getting very busy. And we have all our volunteers in the next room. Can you all stand up so they can see you?
Hold on a second, okay, wait a minute.
Whenever they have music.
I'm not going to say welcome again, but I want to introduce some former, I don't want to say old mayors, former mayors and their families. Could we have the Bellato family stand up? Don.
That's you.
Yeah, you want to
Bellato?
Yeah.
The Traeger family, stand up. The Knudsen family, stand up. And then we have this family. He told me to introduce him as, this is my boyfriend, the mayor. And he truly is a wonderful friend. Not only a friend of mine, but a friend of Marcel's. We're lucky to have him. And I'm going to give you the mic because I'm tired of standing here. Jim Hollenbeck.
Oh, Bill Sandoval, Rosemary, another fine mess you got me into. It's kind of a true story too, because back early in the spring, Patty Jo had sent me a list of stuff going on at the activity.
Oh, introduce Patty Jo, will you? Where is she?
She's hiding in the other room. She's sitting. She's stretching it
I
out.
forgot to introduce Patty Jo. She puts all this together. She makes all of this work.
See, you don't need a microphone.
Anyhow, back in the spring, Patty Jo had sent me the itinerary for the summer for the museum, and I'm reading through it, and I'm like, oh, August, history of Marseilles mayors. You might have to try to go to that. I wonder who's going to do it. So then a month or so later, Patty Jo calls me and said that Rosemary volunteered me to do this. I said, of course you did. So here we are. So I don't know how much people know about the past. We've got quite a few. If you look out there, we got quite a few different books that were published for the different centennials and that coming up. But Marseilles was founded by Lovell Kimball. He recorded the plat that was laid out by the surveyor on June 3rd, 1835, and that is actually still on file over at the South County Courthouse. Later in 1856, Marseilles incorporated as a village, and then in 1891 as a city. And that brings us to our first mayor of Marseilles. The first white family to settle near Marseilles was James Galloway. Came here in 1824 and brought his family back in 1826. John was his son. His younger brother George was the first white male born in South County. They are all buried in the Galloway Cemetery outside of town. John R. Galloway, happens to be Gail Lick's great-grandfather, was born in December of 1839, settled in Marseilles in 1871, and was in the business of farming implements. During his administration, 10 factories and industries came to town. Marseilles Land and Water Power Company, Marseilles Wrapping Paper Company, W.D. Boyce Paper Mill, Marseilles Roller Mills, Marseilles Manufacturing, Huggard Furniture Company, the Match Factory. Everybody's heard of West End of town being referred to as Matchtown. The Brickyard, we still actually have a brick manufacturing place, out on Broadway Street now, then Jerry Brick Company. Western Egg Case Company, Marcel Straw Board Company. John lived in a house where the post office is now. And he also ran a hardware store and then a grocery store on Main Street. He was married to Carolyn Kiesler, and they had one son and one daughter. Before coming to Marseilles, first Mayor John served 3 years as a township trustee, then served as mayor from 1891 to 1895. He died on December 8th, 1912. I forgot a little thing that I had told Patty Jo when she first called me and said Rosemary had volunteered me to do this. I said, Patty Jo, I've been waiting a long time to say this, and it's been years since I could say this. I'm too young to remember most of Marseilles mayors. When I first come to town, I had learned John Spicer was mayor, and I had met Dave Guthrie. He actually lived just a little bit east of where I'm living now, but I never really knew him real well. The second mayor was George W. Smith. His term was from 1895 to 1897. George was born in New York and later married Antoinette. George is listed as a funeral director and a furniture store owner in the 1900 census. They lived at 521 Union Street, had 2 daughters and 1 son. He died in 1930. Evan J. Ward, was born in 1854, served 2 separate terms as mayor. His first term from 1897 to 1899. Not sure why that was a 2-year term. And then again, 1907 to 1909. Maybe the terms were 2-year terms back then. His occupation was a civil engineer, which proved to become quite lucrative for his heirs. He did drainage canal contracts of LaSalle County according to the Chicago record of October 7th, 1893, and attended an anti-sewage convention, sounds interesting, in Joliet in February of 1890, where he was elected as assistant secretary. The anti-sewage convention, was trying to prevent Chicago Stockyard from putting sewage into the Illinois-Michigan Canal. Even after his service to Marseilles, he spoke against a passage of measure concerning waterways. In 1912, January, Times received a pamphlet showing that the water power scheme for the Upper Illinois River was impractical and would prove unprofitable to the state if built. His estate in 1928 was a 240-acre farm in LaSalle County, purchased by the state for $125,500 for a canal, 200 foot wide from Marseilles Dam to the locks as listed in the Daily Illinois State Journal, July 12, 1928. Grant Stebbins, born in 1862, was mayor from 1899 to 1903. He and his wife Kate had 2 daughters and 1 son. In 1902, he unsuccessfully ran for state representative. There's various amounts of information available for the earlier mayors, so that's why some of them are very pretty concise and short. William H. McIntyre's term was from 1903 to 1905. There is not a lot written during his tenure. One of the first projects of his term was to set up the fire department under the city. He also paved Main Street with bricks in 1904. Herbert McCallum was born in Pennsylvania in 1869 and served from 1905 to 1907. His wife Mattie, 2 daughters, mother, and a servant resided in Rutland Township. His profession was an assistant secretary of agriculture. He and Mattie had 1 more daughter and 2 sons when they moved to Moline around 1920. He was manager of John Deere in Marseilles and Moline. John Deere still has a lot of offices and manufacturing buildings in the Quad City area. F.B. Tissler became a citizen in 1854 after immigrating from France as a child. He married Scheidecker in 1865. Tissler was mayor from 1909 to 1913. He was carpenter by trade. He and his wife had 5 daughters and 1 son. They lived at 254 Best Street. FD was the longest subscribed customer according to the August 5th, 1992 Ottawa Free Trader. He first subscribed in 1866. Albert Dean served from 1913 to 1915. According to the 1880 census, he was working in a paper mill and was 16 years old. By 1920, at the age of 56, he was superintendent in the paper mill. His wife's name was Mary E.H. Dean. W.H. Spicer won first place at the 1913 State Fair for Best Boar under 6 months. William H. was mayor from 1915 to 1919, serving as the first mayor under the commission form of government. So apparently, that's about the time that we went to the commission form of government, and we are still the commission form of government today. In previous years, Marseilles was under the automatic form of government. William and his wife Louise resided at 445 Washington Street with their daughter and 3 sons, according to the 1910 census. In 1913, William H. was elected as Secretary-Treasurer of the Marseilles Military Band. He also served on the school board in 1917 and tried to relive the coal shortage in November of 1917. The Ottawa Free Trader listed him as a member of the Modern Woodmen of Chabanal Camp in 1922. John Kelso served as mayor from 1919 to 1927. He was born in 1893, according to the 1920 census, the general manager of the Crescent Paper Mill. His wife Blanche and his aunt Gwen Alice, who was also a trained nurse, lived on Clark Street. During his time as mayor, he did a great deal of traveling, whether for work or the city. The newspaper did not say. Mayor Kelso went to Chicago as a delegate for the Masonic Lodge in 1921. George Sterrett was born in 1880 and served as mayor from 27 to 31. He and his wife Pearl lived on East Bluff Street. Before serving as mayor, he was a city commissioner in 1921. He listed his occupation on the 1910 census as a millwright at the glass factory. I.N. Bowman was mayor from 31 to 35. 40 census lists him as farmer. His wife was T. Jane Trumbull. Notice a lot of these names are very familiar even yet today. And it's her jacket and dress that we have on display today, thanks to the Kuiper family. Mrs. Baum's mother of Letitia Trumbull lived with them on Clark Street. He was also a member of the Shriners Club. Clarence A. Fifield, born 1895, served as mayor from 35 to 39 during the Great Depression. His wife Bess, 2 sons and 2 daughters, and a mother-in-law. Coral Farrell lived on Scott Street. He worked as a stock clerk for a roofing company, Certainty Roofing. They had their manufacturing places, was down on South Main by the bridge, I believe in the area of the car wash and that storage place to the south. Becky Fox's mother, Corrali Fifield Fox, shared some stories of helping her mother Bess preparing food for hungry neighbors and other residents in need. Imagine that was pretty tough back in the Depression. Earl Butterfield was mayor from 39 to 47 and was born in 1892. He and his wife Carletta and 1 son and 1 daughter lived at 693 East Bluff Street. Walter and his son was a newspaper boy according to the 1930 census. Earl worked for the paper mill as a millwright. In 1944, he was a guest of the Chicago Bridge and Iron Company, which manufactured LSDs in the Seneca to tour the big city in Chicago. This was a newspaper article in the Chicago Daily Times dated April 7th, 1944. Frank Simmons was born in 1893 and was mayor from 1947 to 1951. He married Stella Bateman in 1916. He worked with Certainty Products for 10 years and in the office of National Biscuit Company for 34 years. In 1922, he served as a Masonic officer. Later in 1960, he became the Director of Public Relations and Drive Fund for the LaSalle County chapter of Crippled Children and did all the publicity for Easter seals. Clarence DeMoss, mayor from 55 to 59, born in 1895 in Iowa. He has a draft card on file from 1942. Clarence was 46 years old at the time. He was married to Blanche Peterson and in the 1950 census lived at 1095 Union Street. They had one daughter and 3 sons. Ulysses' employer is a dynamite factory, possibly DuPont, I would imagine, and his job as a stationary engineer. Clarence DeMoss died in July 1976 and is buried in Riverview Cemetery in Marseilles. David Guthrie, now we're getting into people that I remember. Held the office of mayor 2 different terms, 51 to 55, and then again 59 to 71, for a total of 12 years. He was born in 1902, worked as a power operator at the paper box factory. His wife Amelia and daughter Dolores lived at 906 Washington Street, according to the 1940 census. And in 1960, the Chicago Daily News carried a story about Marseilles' 125th birthday, stating Mayor Guthrie was chairman of the event. Governor Stratton attended the celebration. In February of '62, the Rockford Morning Star reported Mayor Guthrie declared astronaut John Glenn an honorary citizen of Marseilles. Again, in the Rockford Morning Star in April '62, he was asking for the canal flow of water to be increased at Marseilles and Seneca. Dave Guthrie died in November 1979. In honor of his memory, on the west end of town by Matchtown, the ball diamonds are actually referred to as Guthrie Park. John Spicer served 3 terms as mayor from '71 to 1983. John was mayor in Marseilles when I come to Marseilles as a police officer in 1975. So he was involved in hiring me. According to the records, the Spicer men were highly active in community affairs. John married Edith, and according to the 1940 census, lived at 1445 Union Street. His grandson, Philip, lives there now. They had 2 sons and 1 daughter. John served on the local school board, the building and loan board, and the community hospital board. He was instrumental in building the current Methodist Church in 1958 and was an active church member until his death in 1987. Everybody probably remembers Spicer Gravel on Route 6 east of town. That was
It's surprising this doesn't say that.
yeah, that was the family business. Okay, the next couple are going to be a little tough because I knew them both. We were good friends. John Knudsen was the longest serving mayor, serving 20 years from 1983 to 2003. John was a Marseilles native and graduated from Marseilles High School. He did very well in high school, being a National Honor Society member and a star in athletes. He married Jeannie Wright of Marseilles. They have 3 sons. John was a Vietnam veteran and a long-standing member of our local union 393. He served on the fire department until his first term as mayor. During his 5 terms, he was instrumental in various city projects. John was influential in getting the new Illinois bridge built. Through his efforts going to Springfield to persuade then Governor Edgar and with the help of Frank Montino and Patrick Welch, he was successful in getting our new river bridge. As mayor, he was able to pass the TIP district, which brought in new core. Back then it was PDM steel, Marseilles brick factory, and Intermetals. Very, very substantial assets in Marseilles today. All three of these factories are still doing fine. As the city outgrew the sewage treatment plant, John was able to get grants to help build the new sewage treatment plant on Commercial Street. John got curbing and gutters done on Bratton Avenue during the 80s. He was also instrumental in getting funding from Marseilles athletics. As a veteran, he was one of the first chaperones on the honor flight to Washington, D.C. for the World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veterans. He did 2 flights a year over a 5-year period. John passed in June of 2018, but his contributions throughout his life to this country and his community will long be remembered. John was also a fellow White Sox fan. He and I and several others would go every year out to Arizona on vacation, the spring training. Usually tried to get away from the city and relax and unwind, but John and I would usually end up talking about city business most of the time anyway, and I always valued his input. He was very, very smart. Don Bellato, who we're lucky to have present today, served as mayor from 2003 to 2007. He married Patricia Murphy in 1952. They have 3 daughters. Patricia passed in 1979. Don worked at the Marseilles Post Office and retired in 1992. He remarried in 1986 to Jackie Kneep. I remember Jackie when she was a dispatcher for LaSalle County Sheriff's Department. During his tenure, Mayor Bellato was able to seal the agreement in 2004 on the Middle East Conflicts Wall, which is dedicated to all our fallen heroes. And man, people come nationwide to visit that, not just during events, but all the time. That's very good for the community in Marseilles. James H. Boots Traeger, another dear friend he was a commissioner of public property in 1975 when I joined the police department. He was born in 1938. Jim graduated from Marseilles High School in 1956 and married Sandra Filetto in 1961. Jim started his career in government in 1975 when he was elected as Commissioner of Public Property. After completing a 4-year manufacturer training program, he became a tool designer for Caterpillar in Joliet. Jim at Cat for 38 years. Jim was mayor from 2007 to 2011 and elected again in 2015 until his death in 2017. He was president of the E911 board for 20 years, a member of the Marseilles Planning Commission from 98 to 2005, and served on the Manlius Township Planning Commission during that time. He was a life member of the Marseilles Lions Club for 45 years, where he served as president and treasurer. Jim also served on the board of directors of the Lions Club. Jim and Sandy have 3 children, 2 girls and 1 boy, 7 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. Jim, along with John Knudsen, was a great mentor for me. It was always great to have somebody to go to for some advice and additional input on situations. Patricia Patty Shank Smith was Marseilles' first and only woman to be elected mayor. She served from 2011 to 2015. Patty was a lifelong resident of Marseilles and a member of the Marseilles Methodist Church. She married Fletcher Smith in 1966 and settled on Canal Street, and what has always been known as Matchtown. Patty was director of the Illinois River Chamber of Commerce and worked with the Sutton family on the clock on Main Street in memory of Dr. H.K. Sutton. Patty will be remembered for many contributions to the Marseilles community. Last but not least is yours truly. Born and raised in Seneca, graduating in 1971, attended IVCC, in the University of Illinois Police and Fire Training Institute in Champaign. Come to Marseilles and started my law enforcement career on February 14th of '75. I served as a patrol officer, juvenile officer, and investigator. I was promoted to assistant chief of police in May of '79, and also served as acting chief in 1984. I was acting chief because they knew that I was going to be leaving to go to work for the state in March of 1985. Went to work for the state in 1985 as an arson investigator in the state fire marshal's office. I served in various roles throughout my 30 years with the state. I established the arson detection canine program, which is still in operation today. We started out with 4 dogs. I believe we're up to 6 dogs now. We also did internal affairs investigations, criminal investigations. I was assigned to the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force in Chicago. I retired as a commander in the Investigation and Intelligence Unit in 2015 with 30 years of service. Joined the Marseilles Fire Department July 1st of 1977. Served on the fire department with John Knudsen for a period of time. I come up through the ranks and I'm presently serving as Deputy Chief Arson Investigator and EMT. I first ran for City Council in 2007, was elected, and was a Commissioner of Public Health and Safety for 2 terms. When Mayor Traeger was re-elected, he asked me to be the Accounts and Finance person. I was then appointed to mayor in 2018, unfortunately, when Mayor Jim Traeger passed away. I was elected mayor in 2019, completing my first term. I'm married to Sheila Austin. I have 4 children, Michael, Aaron, Kenneth, and Ashley. 5 grandchildren, Cameron, Kate, Aiden, Connor, and Holden. Since 1979, I've also did snow removal, ice control, and bobcat service with my partner, Anthony Caselli. So, I'm very proud to be Marseilles' mayor. I'm very proud that I've had many mentors in front of me that helped me, people I could go to for advice. When I started to work in Marseilles on the police department, over the years, I've just seen this town has so much potential. And I thought it was important that we try to achieve our potential. And that's what we are all still working at today. Many of the things that are going on today with the water and sewer to Interstate 80, that actually started way back under John Knudsen and Jim Traeger and Patty. It took a long, long time to get the property annexed. Long time to just get everything in order, finances, and to make it happen. I'm very proud to be carrying on many of the projects that Mayor Traeger and Mayor Knudsen started working on. Boat launch is another one that was actually put in the Marseilles Comprehensive Plan back in 1990, late 1980s. So I'm just happy on behalf of those that are no longer with us to be able to carry on some of the, and accomplish some of the goals and objectives that they had. So when I first got to thinking about this program, I didn't realize at the time Donnie Blotto and I are the only ones that are still alive today. And that's unfortunate. So if anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them as long as you don't go back. I am pretty young for some of this.
Yeah.
If not, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and I hope you found it informative.
You get up here. I love bossing her around. She's so easy.
That's all she does.
I want to thank Patty Jo for helping me do the research on this, because since I was too young, she said she could handle it.
It took her 2 weeks of many, many hours to get all that together. And this would not be here without her, would it be, Sam?
That's right.
What we're going to be here without Seattle, and the last thing we ever needed in Marseilles is another empty building.
That's
We're
right.
working hard to try to clean them up. So I
Where
really
are
wanna thank
those, where
Seattle.
are those girls?
Rosemary, I'm talking.
Oh, I love
into a museum, it's definitely a great asset. But you know, if we get that passenger rail, we might have to dedicate an area for a ticket booth again.
That's right.
Maybe put-
Yeah, okay, here's home.
That's still not us.
It
Ours
wasn't
would
2
be
hours,
enforced.
that's amazing. Yay, Seattle! Yay! This woman wears me out. She's 90 years old and she doesn't stop. And we love her. Everybody loves Seattle. No matter where you go in Illinois, you say, have you heard of Seattle Sutton? Oh yeah, she made that food. Yeah.
Well, I remember Seattle Sutton as her husband's nurse when I would go to the doctor as a little kid.
Right.
I was mean.
Yes, you were mean, yeah.
Many a shot.
Well, I love this community, and it is my community, and it's home for my 5 children that graduated from high school here, and they love to come home to Marseilles, and will always be their hometown. And mine too, I'm from Galloway, North Dakota.
Gackle.
North Dakota.
Common spelling?
A town of Gackle, and a town of 500 people. And so I was used to a small community. My dad became a mayor of the community when we moved off the farm and came to the town. And he became mayor, and he taught me many things, like if you could buy it in Galloway, you buy it in Galloway. I wasn't allowed to go to Jamestown to shop or anything like that. If I could find it in Galloway, I bought it in Galloway. He was the mayor of Galloway, North Dakota, and he got the streets paved. He got us water in the kitchens. He was a fabulous guy. And my mother, who only had 8th grade graduation, was his bookkeeper of all the businesses he started. The International Harvester business, Standard Oil, a blacksmith shop, and a Chrysler Plymouth dealership. She did all his bookwork. The companies taught her how to do it. And so I'm just real proud. My husband said, well, you learned the hard work from my Ziegler side, my mother's side, and you learned the business attitude from your dad. And so he thought that was really a good combination.
Told you I'm too young.
I thank you, I thank you.
My dad, Speed, had a barber shop, and he said the very same thing to us as a family. You shop in Marseilles first. If you can't find it here, then you go to Ottawa. And that's what we should remember now, to this day. Shop in Marseilles first.
It's your community, it's your community, your taxes are yours.
Worker.
Everybody workers, right?
But thank you for coming, and you take one of these girls that has one of these on, and they'll take you on a tour and show you all of our museum, because we want you to see it before you leave.